Hey there, friends. Rebecca here, the Dragon Librarian from Farmington Community Library, and Zephyr is here with me today, and we're going to be talking about some of our favorite books that we read in 2024. So far, we have talked about our top 5 favorite literary fiction books that we read last year. We've talked about our top 5 favorite thrillers that we read last year, and I want to also now talk about a genre that I am really surprised that I read so much of it that I have a top 5 favorite list, because this is a genre that I don't normally, prior to last year, not that I don't read a lot of it, but it's just not normally what I used to think of as a go-to genre for me. But this has changed a lot in this past year, and I love that about reading years, right? Like, if you take your entire year of reading, and that's whether you've read 375 books like I did, or whether you've read 5 books or 60 books or 10 books, but if you take your whole year of reading and look back from the beginning to the end, it's just so cool to see all the things that you encountered, all the characters you met, all the places you went. It's just so much fun to do that. And I had a really good time, particularly with this group of 5 books, because like I said, this was a surprise for me. When I started 2024, I was not expecting this to happen. And that genre is romance. Wait, before you run away, even if you're not a romance person, I promise there are some books that I'm going to talk about today that might be ones that you are going to be interested in. Because I didn't really generally consider myself to be a huge romance reader. I mean, of course, there are like specific series I really love, different romance things, but one of the big things that got me reading a lot more romance was the romantasy subgenre, which is the fantasy romance. Obviously, Fourth Wing, A Court of Thorns and Roses, series like that I really love, that got me into, reading a lot of fantasy that had heavy elements of romance. And then I started branching off and reading more of different types of romance too. So I did have a hard time, because I am going to, in a couple weeks, also talk about my favorite fantasy and science fiction books. Have a hard time pulling apart, all right, which ones are going to go on which list. So the books I'm talking about today are the ones that are primarily romance books. A couple of them might have fantastical elements, but really the main theory or the main theme of them is romance. So like I said, this is my first year actually doing a top 5 romance books, which was amazing. And I've read so many books, amazing romance books. It was kind of hard to narrow it down, but I did. And here are my top 5. And like I said, maybe there are ones you've heard of before. Maybe you're not a big romance person. Maybe there's going to be books that you're like, oh my God, I am just head over heels for this book, and she didn't even talk about it. And if that's the case, please leave a comment below. Let me know what some of your favorite romance books are that you read this past year, or recommendations for me, or things that you think I should talk about that are just absolutely amazing. Okay, let's get into it. Book number 5. The Nightmare Before Kissmas by Sara Raasch. Now, I recently talked about this book, so I'm not going to go into a huge summary about it, because a couple weeks, back in December, when I was talking about Christmas books, I did talk about this. And I was not really sure if I wanted to put this on my top 5 favorite list or not. But every time I took it off, it made me really sad, because I kept thinking about how much I loved it and how much I enjoyed it. So this is coming in at number 5. Now, yes, it's like a holiday book, but it does not have to be like Christmas time for you to read it or enjoy it. This book, what I love the most about it is it's so funny. This book does not take itself seriously, which I love. This book is absolutely hilarious. It just takes this huge, amazing blend of humor, but also like family strife and relationships and friendship, and just puts it all into this big ball of joy that I had so much fun reading. And basically it is about the youngest heir of, the oldest heir of Christmas, right? So think of like Nightmare Before Christmas, how each holiday has its own world. Well, each holiday in this book basically has its own representative family, right? You've got an Easter family, a Christmas family. Anyway, the youngest or the oldest son is this Nicky Cole. His nickname is Cole, and he hates how commercialized Christmas is. He hates how everything is. His father keeps trying to get him on board with things. Well, when they decide that they are going to, the Father Christmas is going to force his son to marry the Princess of Easter, who happens to be his best friend. He's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't do this. But then another contender comes who is the Prince of Halloween. And now they are both vying for the Princess of Easter's hand, although they're not really, because they're actually kind of falling for each other. And like I said, this book is just hilarious. It's so much fun. If you're just looking for a really great book to make you feel good, to make you laugh, if you're looking for something light and fun, but also with a lot of really great story and deep themes to it, give this one a try. The Nightmare Before Kissmas. And like I said, you don't have to read it during the holidays. It is just so much fun any time of the year. It's the first of a series. The second one is coming out this March, and I believe has to do with St. Patrick's Day and the other heir of the Christmas family. So, Nightmare Before Christmas. Super fun. Okay, number 4. A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Now, I wanted to check this book out for the first time for a couple different reasons. The first one is I've read most of Ashley Poston's work, and I love her writing. She writes a lot of young adult books, which I love. So when I saw this book, I was like, all right, Ashley Poston wrote it. I will give it a try. But I also wanted to read it because I am a huge, huge sucker. This is not going to be a surprise to anyone. I'm a huge, huge sucker for books about books. Okay? If you give me a book and it has to do with bookstores, librarians, books, reading, writing, I am most likely going to read it just because of that, no matter what else is going on. So for those two reasons exactly was why I picked this book up. And I'm so glad I did because I absolutely loved it. It was so, so sweet. So this book is about a young woman named Eileen who goes on this reading retreat with her friends every year. And they basically are, they love to read romance books. There's this one series in particular, the Allura series, that they all really like. And she feels that she really needs the trip this year because she had a really bad break off with a fiance. She just doesn't feel like her life is going where she wants it to. And she's sad and just wants to go on this trip. Well, close to when the trip happens, everybody else, all her other friends back out for various reasons. So she is like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going on this trip on my own. I don't care. I need a reading retreat. So she's heading off to this trip. It's basically like this cabin in the woods. She gets a little lost on her way there, has some car trouble, and finds herself in this strange and unfamiliar town. Although it's not completely unfamiliar because it looks and seems exactly like the town in her favorite book series. And she's like, what is happening right now? Did I get into an accident? Am I in a coma right now? And the more she discovers about this town, all the stores are the same. All the restaurants are the same. All the people in these places are exactly like in the series that she has read about. Except for one person, the grumpy bookstore owner. He has not appeared in the series at all. She has no idea why he's there, why she is there, if any of this is even really happening. And of course, because this is a romance book, there is some romance between the two of them. I love the trope of a grumpy character and a sunshiny character falling in love. That is one of my favorite romance tropes. I love it so, so much. I even married into that trope. My husband is super, super grumpy, or pretends to be, and I am always very sunshiny. Love that trope. And this trope is just completely, showing off its frills in this book, and I'm just here for it. I loved it. It's a very sweet story. It's also has a little bit of a mystery because you're kind of wondering along with Eileen, like, what is happening? Why is she in this book world? Who is this bookstore owner that is not a part of the book series but now is here too with her? And this book is really fun. If you love sweet romance stories, there's a little bit of spice, but not too much. If you love sweet romance stories, if you love books about books, give this one a shot because it's so much fun and just very, very cute. A novel love story. Okay, it's books 4 and 5. Coming in at number 3. This is, I guess you would consider a little bit of a treat because this is a whole series I want to talk about, but this is the first book and it's called King of Wrath by Anna Huang. Now, this is a book that I didn't really know much about until I was watching a lot of different reviews on Book Talk. And there's a whole section of Book Talk where there's, people that read romance and romance fantasy, and the people that read romance I could not stop hearing about this book from all of them. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Now, this is not a book series. It's called King of Wrath. It's the first book. And the Kings of Sin is the actual series, okay? It's not complete yet. There are 4 books out total. King of Wrath, King of Pride, King of Greed, and King of Sloth are the first 4 out. The 5th one is coming out this spring, I believe, or early summer. Now, this is not a series I expected to love, mostly because it's not about books. It's a contemporary romance, right? There's no weird or fantastic or supernatural elements at all. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to love this, but I tried it and I was obsessed immediately. I love this book. I love this series. They're all so, so good. So basically this story is about a CEO of this company named Dante, and he is ending up in this arranged marriage with this jewelry heiress named Vivian. And the reason this is happening, Vivian doesn't want to marry him, and he definitely doesn't want to marry her, but her father is putting this marriage together because he has some dirt on Dante's family. And he's like, look, you're going to marry my daughter, basically because he wants to be part of Dante's money and everything like that, and his, he's got a big name for himself, right? So he wants everybody to know that his family is now joining with Dante's family. Vivian has a hard time standing up to her father, particularly, kind of lets him boss her around. He's kind of a jerk. The father is such a jerk. And Dante is like, I can't believe, like, this is the worst thing ever. So he's like, I'm going to submit to this marriage, even though I don't want to, and it's going to be the worst thing ever. And they hate each other immediately, of course, when they see each other. And he's like, all right, we need to sell this. We need to make this work. So we're going to have to start going to like events together. We're going to have to start like appearing together in public and spending time together so that the public, sees us together and stuff. And they expect to hate each other, obviously. You know where this is going, right? They start to then, the chemistry between them begins to grow. And, they start to trust each other more. And then you have to, wonder, are they going to be able to break down each other's walls enough to really let the other person in? And oh my gosh, this book was just incredible. I loved it so much. And another thing I loved about it is I mentioned before that there's 3 other books so far in the series, and all of those books feature characters that appear in here. So you definitely want to start first with King of Wrath. The second book features, one of Dante's very good friends, his main story, and so on and so forth. So you read this book, all the characters in it are amazing. I mean, particularly Dante and Vivian, I love them. But all the supporting characters are really great too, and you're going to get really excited to find out their stories too. Like I said, this was a book that completely took me by surprise. I was not expecting to love it. As soon as I read it, I immediately went out and bought the other ones and just devoured them because they were so, so good. This is definitely a very spicy series. So just to let you know that off the top, but it's absolutely incredible. Very well written. Characters are excellent. Character development and growth is really fun. Just an overall fantastic series. Love this one. King of Wrath is book number 1. Okay. Books 3, 4, and 5. Now we are moving on to book number 2. What is book number 2 going to be? Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Now, you might recognize this name for Ali Hazelwood. She is a really well-known author who writes so many wonderful romance books. I haven't read a lot of her work, though, to be honest. I'm going to rectify that this year. I'm going to read a lot more of her stuff. But the first book I read from her was actually her first young adult book that I thought was really fantastic. And this was actually her first paranormal romance or romantasy books, right? It's a book that is a romance but also features some fantasy elements too. So I went into this excited and but not expecting to be blown away because, like I said, I haven't really read a lot of her contemporary work. I loved this book more than I can even tell you. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So basically, it's a really simple premise. Another one of these sort of arranged forced marriage tropes. We've got Misery, who is the daughter of, she's a vampire. She's the daughter of the leader of the vampires. And her father is arranging this marriage for her to marry the head of the werewolf clan, Lo. And obviously werewolves and vampires historically in media have always been foes and feuding, right? they're just feuding all the time. And the same thing is here. There's been wars and wars and wars between vampires and werewolves, and this is supposed to make an alliance between the two clans. Now, Lo wants nothing to do with this in the at all. He's like, oh my god, I can't believe this. And Misery doesn't want to do this, but she also does at the same time, because she has ulterior motives of getting close to Lo, which you find out very close in the beginning. But of course, as you probably can guess, they begin to trust each other, and they begin to uncover some of the corruption in both of their clans, and and then they have to see if they can actually form a real relationship based on trust. What I loved about this book is, first of all, I'm such a big sucker for a werewolf vampire book. Yes, that started from Twilight. I don't care. I loved Twilight when it was out, and I will love vampires and werewolves, and I don't care how crazy that makes me. So I really love a book, particularly a very well-written book, that features, vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. I thought this was really well done. I also really loved the chemistry between the two characters. This book gets very, very spicy, but not until near the end. So there is so much tension building up between these two characters throughout most of the book. It was just so incredible. I loved it so much. And I just love the characters, like, for themselves. Like, I thought they were really fantastic, and they were just great characters. I loved Misery. I loved Lo. I just thought they were fantastic. If you like Ali Hazelwood and you've never read a romantasy or a paranormal romance before, give this one a shot. This is a book I usually recommend to readers who are just starting out with those genres, to find out if it's something that they think they'll be interested in. I think this is a really great beginner book for those looking to read more or explore more paranormal romance or fantasy romance. Excellent book, wonderful writing, great author, Bride. Okay, we're down to number one. What was my number one favorite romance book that I read in 2024? Funny Story by Emily Henry. And no, this is not a cop-out. I do love Emily Henry, and I always expect to love her books. But there are some of her books that I love more than others. And this one is very, very close to being up there as my favorite book of hers, because I thought it was just absolutely phenomenal. So if you've read Emily Henry before, first of all, her books usually take place in Michigan, which is awesome. I love that. First and foremost, I think that's fantastic. But I also, the thing that I love about Emily Henry's writing is that she has really amazing, deep, meaningful stories, but also doesn't like drag you down in deep, unpleasant feelings for too long, right? So they're not like misery fests. You're not gonna, read this book and just be full of all these characters' trauma forever. Like, they go through it. These characters definitely go through it, but that's not the point of the book, and the focus of the book is them growing and learning and becoming more, rather than just being mired in their trauma. And also, this book is funny as heck. It's called Funny Story, and it is a funny story. I laughed so hard. So basically, and another thing to love about this book is our main female character is a children's librarian. Just saying. That's awesome. I love that right off the top. I told you, if a book's about a librarian, I'm going to jump right in and read it immediately. So this book is about our main character, who is engaged to this guy, and she loves when he tells the story of how they met. It's really cute, this funny meet cute, until very close to when they're supposed to get married, and he leaves her for his best friend, who he just suddenly realized that he's always been in love with. So now she is stuck through a series of circumstances with a roommate who is the ex-fiance of the girl her fiance left her for. Does that make sense? So you've got Miles, who is the fiance who was left behind, and you've got our main character, who is the fiance left behind, and now they're living together, and they are trying to process their trauma and their grief at being abandoned and treated this way, being betrayed, while also coping with each other and all of each other's stuff that they bring to the table. And there's a lot of healing, a lot of growth. Obviously, this is a romance. It's an Emily Henry book. They start to fall for each other, right? So, like I said, one of the things I love best about Emily Henry's books is her humor. She is just so amazing at writing great, funny characters, who have a fantastic dialogue and you're just going to laugh out loud. If you're just looking for a really great, also spicy book that is wonderfully written with fantastic characters and wonderful character growth and development with good humor, pick out Run Funny Story, which was my favorite #1 romance book that I read in 2024. Well, that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope that some of these books look awesome, and maybe you want to try something in a genre that you don't normally, or maybe you are a big romance reader and you really want to check out these books, or talk to me about some books that you read that you thought were even better than these. If so, like I said, leave a comment below. Let me know what some of your favorite romance books were. And all of these books are also available at Farmington Community Library. So if you feel like checking them out, please go ahead and do so. And also, thank you so very much for watching, friends, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.